Good morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You are watching World DNA with me, Raisha Saigal.
And I'm Him Khorsara, and on the show today, Syria's de facto leader Ahmed al-Shara has said that the country is exhausted by war and is not a threat to its neighbors or to the West. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has said that it has doubled the number of its forces in Syria to fight the Islamic State group. We'll get you all the latest on this on the show today.
Also on the show today, Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that he was in for talks anytime with US President-elect Donald Trump, who has touted to strike a Ukraine peace deal within hours of coming to office. We will be tracking that and lots lined up on the show. But first, a quick check on the headlines.
HTS leader Al-Jilani urges Western countries to lift sanctions as Syria prepares for a transitional period following the fall of Assad regime. Protesters call for a broad participation in the incoming government.
Pentagon says US has doubled the number of its troops in Syria to around 2,000 earlier this year as a part of operations against the Islamic State group. Washington for years said it has some 900 military personnel in Syria.
Palestinian officials say Israeli forces killed 6 people in the occupied West Bank, while the Israeli military confirms it killed 4 militants in an airstrike on a vehicle in Tulkaram camp.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says he is ready for talks with US President-elect Donald Trump on Ukraine deal at any time, while regretting that he did not launch Moscow's full-scale offensive earlier.
US House of Representatives reject a Republican-led funding bill aimed at averting a government shutdown, with federal agencies due to run out of cash on Friday night and begin closing down over the weekend.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks with United Kingdom's King Charles, recalling the historic ties between the two countries. Both reaffirmed commitment to further strengthen partnership between India and UK.
People in storm-ravaged Mayotte implore French President Emmanuel Macron to do more to help as he tours the overseas territory. An angry crowd boos and shouts at the president.
A stampede at a high school fair in the Nigerian city of Ibadan leaves 35 children dead. 8 people have since been arrested for their various involvements in the incident.
The 2018 World Cup winner Paul Pogba's brother Matthias has been sentenced to prison in France. This comes after he was found guilty of attempted extortion against the former Manchester United midfielder.
Our top focus on the show today, 2 weeks after the fall of Bashar al-Assad government, the calls for democracy in Syria have been growing louder.
Hundreds of protesters gathered at the Umayyad Square in Damascus for the first time since Assad government's collapse. Protesters from secular parties and Syrian intellectuals call for a broad participation in the incoming government to build modern Syria. Others call for a national comprehensive dialogue to build a country for all Syrians.
رسالة واضحة. تجمع الشباب المدني الهدف منه أنه كل السوريين الذين يطالبون بدولة للجميع لكل سوريا ننزل نقول نحن موجودين بالشارع، مو بس على السوشيال ميديا. الحراك بتضمن كثير حركات مدنية في سوريا، بس ما عم تلاقي بعض. هاي فرصة ليلاقوا بعض، نتحاور، نناقش. كلنا أساسا هدفنا الأسمى سوريا تكون دولة للجميع، وعم نحاول نعمل شيء يليق بسوريا كتجمع شبابي مدني.
Demonstrators chanted "Free Civil Syria" and that the Syrian people are one, while some demonstrators held signs including "No free nation without free women." Syria is home to multiple ethnic and religious communities, and many of them fear the possibility that Sunni Islamist extremists will take over.
المرأة السورية مو لازم تكون شريكة، لازم تكون هي اللي عم تقود، لأنه معروف بالحروب كتير الرجال بتسافر، بتموت، بيقل العدد تبعها كتير، بتصير المرأة هي المسيطرة على كل مناحي الحياة المدنية.
Syria's de facto leader, Ahmed al-Shara, better known as Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, has urged Western countries to lift sanctions as Syria prepares for a transitional period.
يجب أن نتعاطى مع القضية السورية على وفق الأحداث الجارية الآن، والأحداث الجارية الآن تتطلب رفع كل العقوبات عن سوريا، لأن العقوبات يعني أصدرت في حق سوريا بسبب النظام الذي كان يحكم سوريا وقام بكل هذه الجرائم، فلا ينبغي أن يحاكم الجلاد والضحية في نفس الوقت. واليوم الحمد لله الضعفاء والمساكين انتصروا على هذا النظام وخرج هذا النظام من المشهد، فبالتالي هذه العقوبات يجب أن ترفع، ثم ينبغي علينا نحن أن نقوم ببرامجنا التنموية والإصلاحية في البلاد.
Well, he goes on to say that the new state will seek to pursue legal channels and democracy with Russia to bring Assad back to Syria to face trial. This even as the Syrian interim government is all set to release the list of names of wanted former Assad regime officials.
Kurdish fighters who came to Syria from around West Asia to support Syrian Kurdish forces say they will leave if a ceasefire is reached in the conflict with Turkey in northern Syria. The withdrawal of non-Syrian Kurdish fighters is one of the major demands of neighboring Turkey, which deems Syria's dominant Kurdish groups a national security threat and is backing a new military campaign against them in the north.
Israel has meanwhile been intensifying its military activity in the Golan Heights buffer zone. Moreover, it has established a military outpost at an abandoned Syrian army base in the village of Maraya in southern Syria. The village on the western edge of Syria's southern Dara province is near the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, but outside of a buffer zone in the Golan Heights.
In response to Israeli incursion in Syria, Russia has urged Israel to remove its forces. President Vladimir Putin has raised concerns over Israel deploying additional forces in Syria, calling it a key beneficiary of the ongoing events in the country.
Но все-таки главный бенефициар происходящих событий в Сирии, главным бенефициаром является, на мой взгляд, Израиль. И можно как угодно относиться к тому, что делает Израиль. Россия осуждает захват любых сирийских территорий, это очевидно. Наша позиция здесь не подлежит никакой корректировке.
The Pentagon says it has 2,000 US troops in Syria, which is far higher than the previously public number of 900. However, it says that the additional troops are considered temporary forces that had been sent to support the counter-Islamic State's leader's mission. US State Department's top diplomat for West Asia is also set to travel to Damascus in the coming few days.
The UN, on the other hand, has condemned Israeli strikes on Syria. It has urged Israel to end the attacks, calling them violation of the country's sovereignty and territorial integrity. And Palestinian officials said Israeli forces killed 6 people in the occupied West Bank.
While the Israeli military confirmed it killed 4 militants in an airstrike, the health ministry in Ramallah said that 4 Palestinians were killed and 3 were wounded as a result of Israeli bombing of a vehicle in Tulkaram camp in the northern West Bank. while the Israeli military said that Tariq Dosh, who is a militant from the Tulkaram terrorist network, was killed along with 3 others in the attack. According to the IDF, over the past year, Tariq recruited various terrorists armed and funded by Iran and by Lebanese terror operatives to plan and execute terrorist attacks against Israelis.
Earlier, the Palestinian Health Ministry said 2 Palestinians were killed in a raid in the Balata refugee camp near Nablus. In Gaza, medics said at least 13 Palestinians were killed overnight in separate Israeli airstrikes, including on 2 houses in Gaza City and a central camp.
Medics said an Israeli airstrike killed 9 people near Beach refugee camp in Gaza City, while another killed 4 others at a housing project near Beit Lahia in the north.
At least 45,129 Palestinians have been killed and 107,338 injured in Israel's military offensive on Gaza since the 7th of October 2023. The Gaza Health Ministry said in a statement on Thursday. Meanwhile, the Israeli military released a video to show airstrikes on the targets in Yemen used by the Houthi regime for its military activities, including fuel, oil tanks and power plants, and 8 tugboats.
Military spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Nadav Shoshani said that the Israeli attack involving 14 fighter jets and other aircraft came in 2 waves, with the first series of strikes on the ports of Salif and Ras Isa and a second series hitting the capital Sana'a. Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis said that the Israeli airstrikes killed 9 people.
On the other hand, video footage released by Yemen's Houthis showed the launch of hypersonic missiles into the night sky from an unknown location, said to be targeting Israel. The Houthis said that they had attacked Tel Aviv overnight, launching 2 ballistic missiles and hitting precise military targets.
However, the Israeli military said it intercepted a missile headed towards central Israel, which destroyed a school building in Tel Aviv's Ramat Efel. The Iran-aligned militant group has now launched hundreds of missiles at Israel over the past year.
Thursday's strikes risk further escalating the conflict with the Iranian-backed Houthis, whose attacks on the Red Sea corridor have drastically impacted global shipping.
Dmitry Medvedev, the deputy head of Russia's council, has called the British Times newspaper's editors legitimate military targets.
This was in reaction to the publication's reportage of a Russian general's assassination. Medvedev made the remarks following an editorial in The Times that described the death of Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov as a legitimate act of defense by Ukraine. Ukraine's security forces have claimed responsibility for the killing.
Russia's former president Medvedev also added that journalists at The Times should be careful as anything goes in London. Responding to Medvedev's comment, UK's Foreign Minister David Lammy in a post on X said that his gangster threat against The Times journalists smacks of desperation.
When asked about Medvedev's remarks, the official spokesperson for the Prime Minister of the UK stated that they were, and I'm quoting here, just the latest in a series of desperate rhetoric coming from Putin's government.
Medvedev's comments comes after the head of Russian military's chemical, biological and radiological weapons unit was killed by a bomb hidden in a scooter outside his apartment building in Moscow. Kirillov is the most senior Russian military official to be killed in an assassination away from the front line since the start of Russia's offensive in Ukraine nearly 3 years ago.
There is no respite from the political crisis in Georgia. For 3 weeks now, massive protests have gripped the nation.
The turmoil has severely impacted Georgia's tourism industry as well. Demonstrations have entered the 3rd week as thousands continue to rally in the capital Tbilisi, urging the ruling party to resume talks of EU accession, which the Dream Party suspended till 2028. The unrest, coupled with police crackdown and mass arrest, have deterred tourists from visiting Georgia.
For you, like as a business, it's devastating. because we are close to Parliament and the central government buildings, and it's protected, so we are on the same street. So actually there is no possibility for our guests to come.
Meanwhile, Georgia's breakaway region of Abkhazia is also witnessing political turmoil. The deputy leader in the Russia-supported breakaway region has been shot dead at the parliament building. Another lawmaker also wounded in the incident. The motive behind this incident still remains unknown.
In other news, US says that China's military power is growing at an unprecedented rate. The Pentagon's annual report says that Beijing is making its most ambitious move yet, a massive expansion of its nuclear arsenal.
Our next story details how the American assessment says that China is rapidly working on its goal to expanding its long-range missiles, which can hit deep within the United States. Take a look.
China's military rise is reshaping global power dynamics. Its arsenal is expanding. Its ambitions are soaring. Its defense spending has doubled in the past decade. Beijing is transforming into a dominant force across land, sea, air, and space. The latest Pentagon report reveals that China is rapidly accelerating its nuclear weapons program, with more than 600 nuclear warheads already in its stockpile. China has added more than 100 warheads in the past year alone. The People's Liberation Army is projected to possess over 1,000 warheads by 2030. This would represent one of the fastest nuclear build-ups in history, challenging decades of US strategic dominance. Though in terms of total nuclear arsenal, it is still below the stockpile of Americans and Russians. What is more alarming for Pentagon is that Chinese military is developing a new conventional ICBM that could strike Hawaii, Alaska, and the continental US. Pentagon's annual report says that China's military rise doesn't stop there. Its navy is now the world's largest by fleet size, boasting modern destroyers, submarines, and aircraft carriers. The PLA Air Force is expanding its long-range capabilities, conducting joint bomber drills with Russia and exploring new overseas operational locations. China's investments in space weapons signals its determination to neutralize the US's orbital advantage. The Pentagon warns that this dramatic expansion in nuclear and military capabilities could upend the global balance of power. As China builds its arsenal, it is also intensifying efforts to modernize its military infrastructure, from advanced missile systems to hypersonic weapons. Beijing is preparing to assert its dominance in any future conflict. Adding to the tensions is the incoming Trump administration, which promises to take a hardline approach to counter Beijing. President-elect Donald Trump's policies are expected to focus on economic pressure, military containment. Trump is seeking to fill his administration with China hawks. With its military ambitions spanning nuclear expansion, naval dominance, and aerospace advancements, China is positioning itself as a formidable global challenger. The world watches with unease as a new arms race intensifies. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And a French court convicted Dominique Pellicourt of aggravated rape for committing and orchestrating the mass rape of his now former wife, Giselle.
The court further convicted all the defendants in the mass rape trial with no acquittals. Dominique Pellicourt was found guilty by the court in the southern city of Avignon. He faces a maximum term of 20 years in jail.
Following the verdict, supporters of Giselle cheered and applauded outside the court.
So we have just learned that Dominic Pellicotte got 20 years. Since the beginning, we thought that this was not enough, but we knew it was the maximum sentence.
72-year-old Dominic Pellicotte has admitted to drugging Giselle for almost a decade, so he and strangers he recruited online could rape her. 72-year-old Giselle has now become a feminist icon at home and abroad for refusing to be ashamed and also revealing her identity. She waived her right to a closed trial, choosing to stand up to her aggressors in court.
C'est avec une profonde émotion.
It is with profound emotion that I express myself before you. This trial was a very difficult ordeal, and in this moment, my first thoughts are with my 3 children, David, Caroline, and Florian. I'm also thinking about my grandchildren because they are the future, and it is also for them that I fought this battle.
Alongside her ex-husband, 50 other men aged 27 to 74 have been on trial, including one who did not abuse her but raped his own wife with Dominic Pellicotte's help. On the 25th of November, prosecutors requested the maximum sentence against Dominic Pellicotte for aggravated rape. It is widely expected that Dominic will receive the full 20-year term, but considerably more uncertainty surrounds the sentencing of the other defendants.
Dominic Pellicotte's lawyer spoke to the press after the verdict, declaring that she has taken note of the court's decision and also added that her client was not yet decided whether he would appeal, for which they have 10 days.
We are not authorized to criticize a court decision. The only way we can contest it is to appeal. And once again, I repeat, we will use a 10-day period we have been given to make this decision and find out whether we should be submitted to a jury of people again in the coming months.
In other news, the US has reported its first severe human case of bird flu. A resident in Louisiana was hospitalized in a critical condition after suspected contact with an infected backyard flock.
Now, the patient showed severe respiratory illness, indicating elevated health risks. People who had been affected in similar cases earlier did show some other symptoms such as eye redness, conjunctivitis. California, that's the most populous state in the United States, declared an emergency over the H5N1 virus that spreads more widely in dairy herds.
Across the nation, federal and state officers are facing a difficult time in controlling the outbreak that has infected dairy cattle for the first time in 2024. State officers have reported that some farmers are resisting testing. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said that bird flu still represents a low risk to the general public. CDC confirmed 61 human cases nationally since April, mostly in workers on dairy farms where the virus infected cattle. Workers culling infected poultry have also tested positive.
According to U.S. data, bird flu has affected more than 860 dairy herds in 16 states since March and killed 123 million poultry since the outbreak began in 2022. In California, the top U.S. milk-producing state, 649 herds have tested positive since late August, which marks roughly 60% of its herds. And with that, it's time now to slip into a short break. But here's a wrap of all the climate stories making headlines across the globe. This week on the West Asia Post, as the European Union tells Russia and Iran to back off from Syria, Iran asserts that the resistance has not died in Syria. We ask what lies ahead for deposed Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Also on the show, Israel says Hamas is showing flexibility in hostage talks. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu takes the stand in a corruption trial. Catch the West Asia Post only on WION World is One.
In a year that reshaped the world, 2024 brought seismic shifts, bold moves, and unforgettable moments that will echo through history around the globe. Wars continued to ravage nations, but new alliances and power shifts began to rewrite the rules of geopolitics. 2024 also bore witness to nature's fury. Climate change fueled deadly wildfires, devastating floods, and unprecedented storms. Devastating wars to technological revolutions. 2024 was the year that changed everything. The Game Changers 2024. The year that reshaped our future. Only on WION. World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Lots lined up for you on this side of the show as well. Let's get started with the headlines first.
HTS leader Al-Jilani urges Western countries to lift sanctions as Syria prepares for a transitional period following the fall of Assad's regime. Demonstrators call for a broad participation in the incoming government.
Pentagon says United States has doubled the number of its troops in Syria to around 2,000 earlier this year as part of operations against the Islamic State group. Washington for years said it has some 900 military personnel in Syria.
Palestinian officials say Israeli forces killed 6 people in the occupied West Bank, while the Israeli military confirms it killed 4 militants in an airstrike on a vehicle in Tulkaram camp.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says he is ready for talks with US President-elect Donald Trump on Ukraine deal at any time, while regretting that he did not launch Moscow's full-scale offensive earlier.
US House of Representatives rejects a Republican-led funding bill aimed at averting a government shutdown, with federal agencies due to run out of cash on Friday night and begin closing down at the weekend.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks with United Kingdom's King Charles, recalling the historic ties between the two countries. Both reaffirm commitment to further strengthen partnership between India and UK.
People in storm-ravaged Mayotte implore French President Emmanuel Macron to do more to help as he tours the overseas territory. Angry crowd boos and shouts at the president.
A stampede at a high school fair in the Nigerian city of Ibadan leaves 35 children dead. 8 persons have been arrested for their various involvements in the incident.
'18 World Cup winner Paul Pogba's brother Matthias has been sentenced to prison in France. This comes after he was found guilty of attempted extortion against the former Manchester United midfielder.
Now, India's Union Home Minister chaired a high-level meeting to review the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir.
This was his first such review on meetings in the Union territory since the assembly elections that brought a national conference-led government to power.
Now, the Union Home Minister had a detailed discussion on the security roadmap for 2025. Jammu and Kashmir Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha, top officers of the Army, paramilitary forces, J&K administration, intelligence agencies and the Ministry of Home Affairs also attended the meeting.
Meanwhile, earlier in the day, yesterday, Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah also met the Union Home Minister and notified him about the prevailing situation in Jammu and Kashmir.
Now, addressing the officials, the Home Minister emphasized on the implementation of the Area Domination Plan and Zero Terror Plan and directed all the security agencies operating in the Union Territory to continue working in a coordinated manner to eliminate terrorism.
He further asserted the central government, with the joint efforts of all security forces, they are committed to establish complete dominance over terrorism from J&K. Terror incidents have been continuing in Jammu and Kashmir. On October 20th, 7 people were killed in a terror attack in central Kashmir. As per Home Ministry data, as many as 50 civilians were killed in 2019 in the Union Territory, while the figure came down to 14 by the first week of November this year. It is nearly 3 times more than what was recorded last year. French President Emmanuel Macron visited the territory of Mayotte after widespread destruction brought on by Cyclone Chido at the weekend.
He vowed on Thursday to rebuild the island located in the Indian Ocean archipelago. Macron said that his government would rebuild schools, homes and the hospital in the aftermath of the cyclone. He also expressed fear that many more victims could be discovered as rescue teams search for survivors and supply the much-needed aid.
Rebuilding Mayotte, that's the commitment I've made. That's the wish of the elected representatives of the population. that is rebuilding both housing and sustainable public buildings that meet the standards and that will cope with events like the cyclone or the natural events that unfortunately we have to deal with in the region. 31 deaths have been officially tallied to date, but this work will continue. I think it's likely that there will be many more victims and that in the town where this work is carried out methodically, we'll be able to identify, I hope, additional victims to give them a name and to pay them tribute.
Macron declared December 23rd as a day of national mourning for the victims of the calamity. His office has said that he would stay on the island overnight and will visit the neighborhoods as well. In a statement, the French president also vowed to strengthen the fight against illegal immigration to the archipelago.
However, the people in storm-ravaged Mayotte were not very pleased by Macron's visit as they implored the French president to do more as he toured the overseas territory, where scores are feared dead in the rubble left by Cyclone Chido.
In Pamanzi, an angry crowd booed and shouted at the French president, asking for more aid to be supplied. The officials in France's poorest overseas territory have only been able to confirm 31 fatalities so far, even after 5 days have passed since the cyclone hit the island, with some claiming thousands could be dead.
Heavy rain in the capital and other areas has worsened the plight of thousands of people whose shantytown dwellings were flattened, while many areas remain inaccessible. From the dazzling full moon to its crescent form, our planet's only natural satellite orbiting at a distance of 385,000 kilometers has been an object of human fascination for a long time.
And now scientists say that the moon might be much older than previously thought. Our next report telling you more.
Moon is our silent celestial companion. It has watched over Earth for eons. A silent witness to the birth of life and its evolution. But how old is this steadfast sentinel? New research suggests it is far older than previously believed, potentially rewriting the history of our planet and its satellite. For decades, scientists have debated the moon's age. Apollo mission samples suggested a younger moon, formed around 4.35 billion years ago. But fresh findings challenge this timeline. A groundbreaking study has been published in Nature journal. Researchers from the US, France and Germany indicate the moon may have formed as early as 4.53 billion years ago. Well, basically, it was just after Earth's birth. This means the moon is at least 100 million years older than previously estimated. The leading theory of the moon's formation revolves around a massive collision in the early solar system. Around 4.6 billion years ago, as Earth was still a molten, chaotic mass, a Mars-sized object called Theia collided with it. This cataclysmic impact ejected material into orbit, which eventually cooled down to form the moon. However, the new analysis provides a more nuanced timeline. It suggests the moon formed earlier than thought and later experienced a significant remelting event. This occurred as it drifted away from the Earth, with gravitational forces generating immense heat that reshaped its surface. This revised timeline could explain some of the moon's mysteries. The absence of massive impact basins, its lower metal content compared to Earth, and its unique evolutionary path. The findings also provide deeper insights into Earth's own turbulent history, offering a glimpse into the violent birth of the solar system. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
On the world of business now, Vijay Mallya in a social media post questioned how he could be considered an economic offender after more than double the amount was recovered that had been determined by the court as debt owed.
He cited a statement by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in Parliament regarding the recovery of over 14,130 crore rupees from assets attached to him.
Well, on X, Mallya said the Debt Recovery Tribunal adjudged the KFA debt at 6,203 crore rupees, including 1,200 crore rupees of interest. He further said, and I quote him, the Finance Minister announced in Parliament that through the ED, banks have recovered around 14,131 crore rupees from me against the judgment debt of 6,203 crore rupees, and I'm still an economic offender. Mallya added, unless the ED and banks can legally justify how they have taken more than 2 times the debt, I'm entitled to relief, which I will pursue.
Mallya seeks relief against the ED and banks unless they can explain why they are attempting to recover more money than he owes them. Mallya's posts come after Sitharaman told lawmakers on Tuesday that public sector banks have retrieved, as I mentioned, 14,131 crore rupees from the sale of assets owned from the fugitive business tycoon. She added that the government is continuing its efforts to refund money to impacted organizations and combat financial crimes.
The now defunct Kingfisher Airlines was the subject of charges of financial irregularities which forced Mallya to flee India in 2016. The Indian government has been seeking his extradition from the United Kingdom to face trial.
Now, Mallya's assets were sold off after being confiscated under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act to settle debts owing to the financial institutions and other creditors. All right, and the European luxury goods stocks recovered in December, relieving some of the pain for the investors.
And this comes after a year of worries about falling demand in a crucial market, China. Our next report telling you more.
Shares in producers of high-end products are on track for their best month since February. This comes as optimism returns after repeated rounds of stimulus in China to revitalize the world's second biggest economy. With a gain of more than 8% in December, a sector tracking basket reduced its year-to-date decline to only 1%. The reversal shows how concerned investors are about China, a country whose citizens buy almost 15% of the world's luxury goods. The Asian nation last week hinted at further stimulus measures, which sparked a rally comparable to the one in September, which was short-lived. One other country that is likely to increase demand for luxury goods next year is the United States. President Trump has promised to deregulate the economy and cut taxes, which might lead to more spending. Dora Bukulchikova, a portfolio manager at Robeco, Switzerland, said, for many luxury companies, China and the US remain key catalysts for the short term. She added, we are positive on both, even as the exact timing of the turnaround is still uncertain. LVMH Moet Hennessy, Louis Vuitton's share price, saw notable losses this year. LVMH was the largest listed business in Europe until mid-2023 when pharma firm Novo Nordisk surpassed it. LVMH's stock price has fallen 14% so far in 2024, its worst yearly performance since 2008's financial crisis. Investors are banking on a U.S. pickup in 2025 thanks to President-elect who has boosted the dollar and the stock market. Analysts have pointed to Brunello Cucinelli's exposure to the U.S. market as the reason for the firm's increased sales growth projection last week. That is the latest indication of sustained demand at the upper end of the luxury range. Gaz Rothbard, co-head of European equities at BlackRock Fundamental Equities, said, more recent company results have shown an improvement for some well-positioned companies in the US and European market. Rothbard added, a continuation of this trend supported by improved consumer confidence, higher wages, and particularly in the US and the post-election animal spirits could aid luxury companies from here. Nevertheless, there are still several obstacles for the industry. Morale could take a knock if Trump starts a trade war while in office. More and more Chinese consumers are ditching bling after post-pandemic spending was cut short by economic gloom. The desire for luxury products has also been hit by the recent spike in their costs. Business Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, let's get you the latest now from the world of technology. A top United Kingdom counter-terrorism official has issued a warning about the impact of extreme online content on young people. Deputy Assistant Commissioner Vicky Evans said children as young as 10 are being exposed to a pick and mix of horror on the internet. From violent imagery to extreme pornography to racist and misogynistic material, this content is fueling their negative emotions. He also mentioned that many individuals lack a clear ideology and instead gather disturbing material from various sources. The UK government has responded by proposing its prevention program, which aims to counter radicalization. New measures include special intervention orders for young people and updated criteria to tackle cases where there is no clear terrorist ideology.
YouTube is taking steps to crack down on misleading clickbait. The platform says it will start enforcing stricter rules for video titles and thumbnails, especially for breaking news and current events. Initially, YouTube will remove such content without issuing strikes, giving creators time to adapt. Over time, enforcement will focus on new uploads. However, questions remain: what defines clickbait versus mild exaggeration? How will YouTube decide what qualifies as breaking news? The platform is yet to clarify these details. For now, creators in India are being urged to align their content with this policy as YouTube aims to ensure a more reliable experience for its viewers.
A shocking lawsuit in Kenya has highlighted the severe toll of moderating graphic social media content for Facebook. Over 140 moderators hired by an outsourcing company for Meta have been diagnosed with severe PTSD, anxiety and depression after years of reviewing disturbing posts including violence, child abuse and terrorism. PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, is a mental health condition triggered by experiencing or witnessing traumatic events causing intense anxiety, flashbacks and emotional distress. The moderators worked under harsh conditions from 2019 to 2023, earning significantly less than their US counterparts. Many reported fainting, vomiting and developing long-term mental health issues. Some turned to substance abuse, while others feared retaliation from extremist groups they monitored. The lawsuit has accused Meta and its contractor of mental harm, unfair practices and even modern slavery.
On the world of sports now, Tottenham Hotspur edged Manchester United 4-3 in night of goalkeeping haulers and defensive errors in the EFL Cup. Spurs will now face defending champions Liverpool for a spot in the final.
Ruben Amorim left Marcus Rashford out of United's squad for a second straight game as the Red Devils travel to London aiming to build on their impressive derby win against Manchester City. The hosts opened the scoring in the 15th minute when Dominic Solanke reacted quickest after United goalkeeper parried on a shot into his path, and Dejan doubled the lead for Spurs just after restart when he fired home from Lisandro Martinez, failed to deal with a James Maddison cutback. Tottenham were cruising to as Solanke struck his second in the 54th minute after latching on to a long ball. Spurs' control soon turned to chaos following some massive goalkeeping blunders by Fraser Forster, who was deputizing for the injured Vicario. His first error came in the 63rd minute when an attempted pass was intercepted by Bruno Fernandes, who set up substitute Joshua Zirkzee for an easy finish.
Foster was at fault again 7 minutes later when he hesitated to clear and allowed another substitute, Amad Diallo, to score United's second goal. The host eased the tensions 2 minutes from time when Son Heung-min's corner drifted straight in to make it 4-2 in their favour. Even then, United had time to find another goal when Johnny Evans headed home late into the match, but eventually they ran out of time.
And in celebration of the 50th anniversary of the greatest mob movies of all time, The Godfather Part 2 has received a brand new trailer.
The preview revisits iconic scenes and highlights the timeless performances of stars Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, bringing fresh excitement to the cinematic classic.
Now, director Francis Ford Coppola's six-time Oscar-winning masterpiece, The Godfather Part 2, originally hit theatres on the 20th of December, 1974.
The movie made history as the first sequel to win a Best Picture Oscar among its haul of 6 golden statuettes that year, including Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Art Direction, Best Music and Best Supporting Actor for Robert De Niro.
Still considered the greatest sequel ever made, the movie was produced on a modest budget of just $13 million and went on to earn an impressive $93 million at the box office.
The 1974 Mafia epic, which served as both a sequel and a prequel to the 1972 movie The Godfather, continued the legendary saga of the Corleone family. The movie intertwined the rise of a young Don Vito, portrayed by Robert De Niro, with Michelle Corleone's reign as the new Don, played by Al Pacino. The movie also features one of its most iconic moments as Michelle discovers his brother Fredo's betrayal of the family.
Stars Marlon Brando and Robert De Niro made history as the first actors to win Oscars for portraying the same character in 2 different films. Brando won Best Actor for 1972's The Godfather, while De Niro earned Best Supporting Actor for 1974's Godfather Part 2. Over the years, the franchise has solidified its place as one of the greatest films in cinematic history.
Disney's much-awaited movie, Mufasa, The Lion King, roars into theatres today.
Promising an unforgettable journey into the Pride Land, fans across the globe have been eagerly anticipating this epic story that explores the origins of the iconic king.
Starring Aaron Pierre as the legendary Mufasa, this Lion King prequel is brought to life by Oscar-winning director Barry Jenkins.
The film also features Kevin Harris Jr. as Chaka, Seth Rogen as the lovable Pumbaa, Billy Eichner as the quick-witted Timon, and Donald Glover reprising his role as Simba.
This live-action spectacle, it takes audiences on an emotional journey exploring Mufasa's challenging upbringing as an orphan, his bond of brotherhood and his rise to claim his rightful place as king of the Pride Lands.
Beyonce's daughter Blue Ivy makes her feature film debut. She has lent her voice to Kiara, the daughter of Simba and Nala, with Beyonce herself portraying the iconic Nala.
With a reported budget exceeding $200 million, the movie is said to be one of the most ambitious productions, following in the footsteps of its predecessor as a box office phenomenon titled The Lion King.
The 2019 live-action remake of The Lion King was a monumental box office success, grossing an impressive $1.6 billion worldwide on a $250 million budget. Fans are now eagerly awaiting to see how the film fares at the box office. And with that, we call a wrap on this edition of World DNA.
Thanks for staying with us. You are watching WION World is One. Stay tuned.
In a year that reshaped the world, 2024 brought seismic shifts, bold moves, and unforgettable moments that will echo through history around the globe. Wars continued to ravage nations, but new alliances and power shifts began to rewrite the rules of geopolitics. 2024 also bore witness to nature's fury. Climate change